Hello, welcome to our live stream. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to move my camera slightly because we're lopsided and it's bothering me. It's gonna bother at least one other person. Okay, welcome to our call. Tried to make myself look less like a raccoon, failed miserably. So welcome to our session. I have to be totally honest before we start this and say that my brain is very squirrely today. So we are going to be having a chat about coaching and mindset and all that kind of thing with AI, but not necessarily with how you might be using it in client projects in the way that we have talked about it with other things, because there are some other things that we want to consider when it comes to coaching practice that are really a conversation. So we're here, we love alive. I would love for you to share in the comments what your relationship with coaching is. Do you provide coaching? Do you get coaching? Are you interested in providing coaching services or providing services to coaches? But do put a little bit of info in the chat if you would like to. Thank you for those of you who've left a Marketing Magic Trustpilot review. I got such a nice little dopamine buzz on my 25-minute break between live streams, reading through some of those. They take a bit to process, so it was really nice that they were there. And I appreciate the time that you have taken to fill those in. So I'm replying to them, but I ran out of time. So I will reply to the remaining reviews when I finish and wrap up here. So Lindsay is here and provides a business and mindset coaching for female entrepreneurs. Tori is a business coach for small business owners and does vision and strategy. And Karen is here as well. Karen, yes. So I don't necessarily have a good vacation plan, but I do have a spa day planned with Lucy. We're going to a spa hopefully next Wednesday. So we will just be avoiding screens in silence, I think, because we're both pretty exhausted at the moment. David is here as well. Good to see you here, and you're in the Pacific West, so it's evening here, which is why it's a little bit darker, but the ring light is doing its thing. So it is 7 p.m. here at UK time. I'm actually, Lindsay said you must be wrecked after all these calls. I'm actually mostly okay. The thing that has been tiring has actually been the development stuff and the calls. So both of them together, I'm a little bit more tired than normal just because of the context switch. The development stuff is just like very time, it's very time intensive, but also it takes a lot of like cognitive energy. So my usually quite good communication skills definitely take a dive when I've been building out and getting ready to like release something new. But it's fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm glad to be here. And we're going to be looking at AI and coaching today. So I'm going to just remind myself of the exact title of this session. I don't mean to sound unprofessional at all there, but I just need to double check. Coaching consulting. So that's fine. So we've got a focus tonight on the use of AI within these spaces. Now, full disclosure, we have a commercial lifetime license deal available for Marketing Magic right now for 10, 20, or 30 clients. We are going to be looking at how we use that in our session like a bit later towards the end, a little bit of a demo of that. But we are thinking through some of the AI what's going to happen in the future. What does AI bring? What kind of things can we expect to see and change? And what does human value look like in that? Now, I have so far gotten a whole load of different notes that are all available on the replay page, and you've got access to those. I'm just pulling up my a document here. Bear with me a second while I make sure it's in the right folder. Okay. And then we're going to screen share. and then we'll have something to guide my squirrel brain. So, okay, let me pull this out. The dead air has been real today. You can tell I'm tired. I'm not normally better at talking and doing. Okay, present. There we go on my StreamYard. So, Marketing Magic is here just from earlier. I get lost in coding. Yes, me too. Oh, okay. Karen is a Gene Keys guide enjoying this in the PNW. Amazing. David, struggling to differentiate between one-to-one and group teaching since I don't have a working list at this point. Cool. Awesome. Good to know. So we are going to pop over to our document. You'll get access to this as part of these sessions. And there's some sort of notes around AI, things that AI can't do. And then there is a little bit of context here as well. So we're looking at business coaching specifically. Now, there are lots and lots of different types of coaching. And the reason that I'm looking more at business coaching is because if we think about the application of tools like Marketing Magic, when it comes to the contextual insights for the business space, we are really going to be seeing sort of business marketing, coaching and consulting and that kind of thing. Now, I would like to caveat that with the fact that coaching is not designed for directive input. So when you are working in a coaching relationship, the space that you're creating for your clients is not one where you are giving directive advice or telling them what they should do or any of those things. It's very much a facilitation of how do we reach the best outcome for you in your context. So I'm just framing that because some people offer their coaching and it is more akin to something like mentoring. When I'm talking about coaching, I'm specifically talking about non-directive input. If you are doing consulting and mentoring, that is where the directive advice or advisory support or input would come into this. So I just want us to be super clear on definitions before we go into this, because it is a space that is it's unregulated. There are loose definitions for different people. There are some regulations, but it's not like super regulated. So I just want to be super clear about what I mean when I'm talking about coaching and the application of things within the sort of coaching versus consulting. So consulting is in my experience, much more looking at the sort of it's more directive, it's more strategically informed in a practical outcomes and implementation sense. There is a little bit more to do with your expertise being applied in a context. So I will go into a business as a marketing consultant and provide advisory support and tell them what I think, in my experience and expert opinion, what I think that they should do, what their strategy needs to look like in order for them to reach their goals. I will go in as a consultant and provide reporting and all of that kind of thing. Coaching is not that. Coaching would be, much more exploring the sort of bottlenecks and understanding the, performance issues and the, contextual framework for the business owner or the person that you're coaching to come to some of their own conclusions with a little bit of guided support. Sorry for the over explanation, but the reason for the over explanation is because coaching fundamentally requires a relationship in order for it to be effective. It requires the contextual space that is provided in order for it to be a coaching relationship. And Dr. Rob Kemp is somebody that I have mentioned before. He's a friend of mine who works as he's like the director of coach training. He's like a big wig in the coaching space. He trains coaches, but in the like ICF framework. And he has a doctorate in something super interesting related. Look him up if you're a coach, because he's awesome and he's an absolute legend. But he has written, co-authored an article with somebody on AI in coaching, looking at the way that AI coach apps have been built out and thinking through what what coaching actually is, existentially speaking. And those conversations are incredibly important to have, because you are not having a conversation with a human when you use an AI coaching app. You are having a conversation with an algorithm that is going to give you relatively predictable advice or input based on what you put into it. If you want to be a business leader, if you want to be your most creative self, if you want to be innovative, if you want to have an impact, you absolutely should not be getting coaching from an AI coaching app and expecting that to help you be professionally more excellent or to have your business be more impactful. Because the things that we are addressing or the things that are stopping us from reaching the things that we want to be doing are very often tied to our personal context in a much deeper way than an AI coaching app is ever going to be able to give you. The AI coaching app approach, at the risk of alienating a whole group of people who might be really into them, is the equivalent of like posting inspirational quotes on Instagram in 2014. It's giving, she believed she could, so she did. And if you need that, absolutely crack on, like that has a place. And in terms of getting contextual inspiration or motivational quotes, absolutely great. But we want to be super, super clear that AI coaching apps are not coaching. They are motivational quotes provided to you on tap, and it is regurgitating information that is already out there in the online space. So that's a hot take. I personally am not a coach. I have done a lot of consultancy over the years. I am speaking about this based on my knowledge of the space, based on having worked with a lot of business coaches, based on doing a lot of reading around this space. But I want it to be very clear that I myself am not a coach. And my angle here is thinking through the idea of what AI is and the idea of what coaching is in terms of that non-directive input. So that is that. So business coaching, this needs to be business coaching and consulting. Here we go. So ways that AI can be applied, two things. Now we're going to dive into this in a little bit more detail. But the ways that AI can be applied are a varying applications when it comes to like the actual gathering of information. So we're going to dive through those, but let me double check the comments here. So Tori, I'm a mentor and consultant with coaching, so I offer the answer, not just ask them questions. Great. And then Karen offers consulting with her day job, where I provide answers and recommendations. Brilliant. So that's great. And the only reason that I'm being so specific with my language here is because I just wanted to be very clear about why AI coaching apps are not something that is they're not technically a coaching relationship, because the coaching is the relationship. So I just want to be super clear with that. Now, on we go. So business coaching and consulting. So areas that AI can help. So performance tracking. So if you are working with people and you are wanting to give them ways of objectively tracking how their business is growing or what results they're seeing from working with you, things, even if you're doing like mindset coaching, for instance, the mindset coaching in and of itself is a quite subjective piece, right? You might have specific things, but there's a level of subjectivity to it. Now, if you are collecting data points for like how the business is currently doing and then tracking some of that over time to create objectivity in your results. So you're working on something subjective, but you want to create an objective external measurement. AI can help with that if you're doing anything that is more consultative or mentoring focused. Again, analytics and performance tracking. And you can also use AI to get recommendations for how to improve those numbers further. If you're wanting to provide people with like a framework for, okay, well, this is obviously outside of the scope here, but as far as resources are concerned, here are some practical things that potentially you could look at implementing. Resource allocation, again, this comes more into the like consulting side of things, but just looking at what is currently available, how that is impacting the business, how that can be optimized. Performance metrics, a lot of these metrics based. Looking at different strategies. So looking at, again, if we think about like a body of anything where there's a body of data or a body of research and you want to analyze the patterns of data, the trends, the opportunities, AI can be applied to that really easily. Analyzing past strategic documents and looking at the current performance and making connections between past strategies, actual performance, the gaps that didn't get met, and then future opportunities is another really good one for creating documents. Now, I will say, because live we've got people who are working with small business owners, those things don't necessarily exist for small business owners in the same way as if you're working with like a more established company or a bigger company or a more established business. But that is another example of how you can use AI to analyze documentation and get you kind of up to speed without needing to go through everything yourself from a research perspective. Organizing schedules and plans. So you can also create a roadmap of things to work on. So let's say you've got an intake form. Also, by the way, we're talking about the generic application of AI here, not marketing magic, just to be super clear. But you can take, let's say you've got a questionnaire or an intake form that your clients submit. You've got a discovery call. You're having these conversations using AI to create a custom plan of action for what you're going to be working on through the next, 3 months. What are you going to be working on each week? What is the different focus each month? What are the sort of actions or outcomes that you want to be exploring and working towards? Those again are ways that you can shortcut that process. I'll maybe do a session about this at some point, but I have created a process for calls that basically pulls out key elements, and then I can bring that into a customized report, but it allows me to basically not have to retype all the things that I've already said and it like formats it nicely and everything as well. So there's things like that you can use that help with and using tools like Otter, for instance, for transcripts. They give you some basic notes, but let's say you've got a framework where you want to pull out certain things and you know what that looks like. You can build that out and use AI with your call transcripts to make sure that you've got things formatted in as far as your own coaching framework is concerned, or your consultative framework. So reminders and follow-ups, similar situation here. Basic insights from data, things that we've covered previously. Tracking progress and milestones, assessments and quizzes. I'm quite interested to see how AI quizzes develop over the next sort of few months in particular. Templated advice and feedback, again, that's more on the consultative side of things, and then looking at information on things like market trends. Now, I will say that for things that are based on actual market data, you always want to fact check and double check that the language model behind the data is fully up to date and can give you actual information there, and isn't just giving you a regurgitation of the most common metrics or most common data points. There's a reason Marketing Magic gives you customer insights rather than like actual percentage of people do this, because that is like pulling from data pools that I just don't I'm sorry, I'm just constantly filtering myself for how much to overshare. As far as things like pulling like the percentage of customers who did a certain thing. We're getting into issues with like data privacy and how data is used in a way that I don't necessarily trust companies to be doing that well, especially with like the third-party cookies thing and everything that's happening towards the end of this year. So I will use AI for relatively general things now. So that's to caveat that when you're asking like a generic language model. Now, what you will see is companies like there's a company that does like trend forecasting for fashion and interiors and stuff, and it's called WGSM or something like that. And anyway, companies where their whole focus is researching the industry and they build out their own AI models to deliver insights and information that you can kind of quiz and put your context in and get stuff out. That is the kind of thing that I'm interested to see more of going forwards. I do not know how people are applying it in those businesses and whether people are even thinking about it in to that degree at this point, because it is expensive to build out your own stuff. But that is the kind of thing where I'm like super excited to see that happen, because if you've got a company that's got a whole load of data about an industry or a segment of the market, and they can create a framework that allows you to ask that framework questions for your own context, those types of things are going to be incredibly helpful. And so if you are a business coach, keeping an eye on the AI innovations and the AI features that are potentially added to companies that provide industry and market insights to your area of specialism is something to keep an eye on. And I would go so far as to ask them about it, get it started, get your customer request in there, and hopefully they've got someone in customer experience being like, product development opportunity, let's do this. So definitely as far as the sort of build out of future function is concerned, when it comes to those tools, we're going to start to see a lot of interesting things happen there. Creating visualizations of goals or achievements. Again, there are different tools that allow you to do that in terms of metrics and graph creation. And then obviously you've also got generative stuff, which I tend to stay away from the visual side of things, but those are some examples. So unique value of a human, personal development, empathy, motivation, understanding of individual human needs. This cannot be replicated by AI, especially cannot be replicated without providing AI with way too much personal information. We really do need to take our personal data privacy seriously. And this is not a rant. It is absolutely connected, I promise. But it's not that we have anything to hide. It's that if we give things up willingly, it's hard to take them back. And we end up in a situation where we have totalitarianism as standard, and the internet is kind of moving that much more quickly towards social and cultural inevitability if we aren't a little bit more salty when people misuse our personal information. So when it comes to using AI, absolutely, under no circumstances should anyone be sharing in an AI coaching app personal details of their like traumas, their challenges, their experiences. That data it's not going into a robot. The robot isn't the only one seeing it. There are people at the other end of that. AI language models the databases are labeled by human workers in a lot of instances. That is not a part, like the actual build out of the human labeling system in order to train the algorithm is done by human people. It is not just data into an ether unless you have got full assurances that it is encrypted and that it is never seen by anyone else. So be very, very cautious. And also, if you've got people who you're talking to who are using these apps, make it very clear to them that they really, really should not be bearing their soul to a tool, because it will potentially not be something that is deleted. So that is something that we all want to be mindful of and cognizant of, especially because the coaching relationship is something where you are covering confidential information related to both the business, the future ideas, the innovation, but also for coaching. The things that are stopping you from being where you want to be are a conversation often that comes down to our internal blocks, our experiences, the things that have shaped us and who we are. And those are not things that we want to be putting into an AI app by any means. Building personal and trusting relationships with clients, providing nuanced feedback and motivation. This comes back to context, right? AI does not know how to do context unless we give it the contextual framework. And even with the contextual framework, the specific nuance is often lost because it is an algorithm, it's mathematical, and it's predictive text on steroids. Assessing personality traits and behavioral patterns. If you are somebody who focuses on coaching, and I'm thinking more about like somatic coaches, because we've got a few people who do things like that in Marketing Magic, where people's embodied experiences and how their body language displays what they're processing internally, AI coaching is never going to do that. Your analysis of when people are talking about things and the subconscious ways that their body language displays stress, for instance, is something that you will pick up on as an expert and be able to explore a little bit more in that safe space. AI can't do that. So you're only ever, with AI coaching, going to be addressing the things that are conscious for you right now. So if you think about the Johari window, where you've got the things that are known only to you, the things that are known only to other people, the things that are known to you and other people, and the things that are unknown. Your Johari window for coaching is basically an echo chamber where it's the things that are known to you or the things that are known to you and the public. The things that are known only to you are known only to you for a reason, and they are not necessarily things that you should be putting into an AI coaching app. That feeds back to my previous comment about how we handle our data privacy and our stories. And the things that are known to you and public are like how your public perception comes across and the things that you know about people, that you communicate about yourself. AI cannot give you the Johari window of the things that are known only by somebody else. So that's where observation comes in, right? If you're working with a coach, they are observing you, they are listening to you, they are asking you questions that are filling in the gaps and that are helping you expand your understanding of your situation and yourself. And that's space for conversation. AI cannot do that because AI does not have any context apart from the context that you give it, which is either too personal or stuff that is already known. So AI coaching is not going to help you expand into and deal with the things that are currently unknown or subconscious to you because you're not conscious of it, therefore you cannot provide it with the context, therefore it cannot help you. Does that make sense? We're getting a little bit into like philosophical kind of I believe, therefore I am being coached. But hopefully that makes sense. Like fundamentally the context window when you're interacting with AI is limited by your own consciousness. And I am very aware that this has taken a detour away from creating a sales page into, how do we express ourselves and what we understand about ourselves. But that is why the relationship element of coaching is so important. So when you are assessing people's behaviors, their personality traits, you're picking up patterns in their embodied humanity, and if you're on Zoom or something, you're watching how they respond. If we think about 70% of communication is non-verbal, you are observing all of that and AI isn't. And if AI is and it's watching you through face recognition, again, privacy issues, people. So guiding clients through their emotional and mental challenges. We've got context, nuance here, that if you are able to come alongside somebody in a specific moment, whether it's a business challenge as a consultant, or it's something that is more to do with the like leadership or performance processing of coaching, you are able to work through that because of that contextual framework in a way that helps them move past that more quickly. You can talk to AI for hours. And if you don't get that contextual, if you don't get that contextual feedback, you end up in a loop and like talking yourself around it. So again, I'm just basically giving you a list of ways to cancel AI coaching out. I'm not meaning to do that. I'm just kind of highlighting the difference really between what we get and what we are trying to do. Okay, so facilitating introspection, self-awareness, aligning coaching with your personal values and ethics, encouraging clients in a way that resonates with their personality, adapting to unexpected challenges in a client situation or goals. Now, personal values and ethics. I have, talked about this before. I'm going to use this as an example, but I am a Christian. My husband is a church leader. I don't always feel like Christian spaces are comfortable because I grew up in a non-Christian family, and that Christianity has its own culture. And sometimes that is a space that doesn't always feel totally easy for me as someone who my Turkish family are Muslim. Now I'm married to a Church of England vicar. Like, where do I fit? In these things. So, personal values and ethics, right? My personal relationship with my my faith-based values, as well as how I want to show up and run my business, as well as all of the experiences that I've had with my family, all of those things have genuinely created situations where I've been stuck in my own thoughts and musing over like ways to do things that aren't just Instagram marketing is a classic example, right? Christians on Instagram love a little Bible verse flat lay, a lot of Bible and devotional flat lay. They love a little Bible verse quote. I am not a Bible verse quote kind of a Instagrammer, which is probably not a surprise to you if you've listened to any of my sessions. Like, that's not my energy. It's not my vibe. And so for me, like, there's been times where, like with my marketplace business, I'm like, I know how people grow audience in that space, but I don't think that is a helpful or fruitful way to grow your business, regardless of what your business is. So anyway, that is a wormhole for another time. But the point is, if I went to AI and talked about my business bottleneck for my marketplace business in AI, it would only ever be able to give me very generic results for that contextual dilemma, because all of the information and training that it has is based on what is already out there. So if I don't want to do things the way that they have been done and been demonstrated to do in the wider space, the results that I get are always going to involve the way that things have been done previously. And I talked about this before, where if you want to be truly innovative, I think this was the content marketing live stream, but I've lost track. If you want to genuinely go in a different direction, AI cannot help you with a strategy or moving forward, because it is going to give you the most common factor. And so if you go to it with like a really niche problem, the advice that you get out of it might be a bit more niche because you've provided it with a bit more context, but it's still ultimately going to be based on what has already happened, what is already out there, the data that it has been trained on. And so if you come to it and you say, I see, as a human and as a marketing expert, I see these problems with this approach. These are my personal values and the reasons that I also would not take this approach for this business. What is the space that is left there? Well, I don't know, because I haven't done it and nobody has necessarily demonstrated it yet. But AI also doesn't know that. So when you are coaching people through their small businesses, the procrastination, the bottlenecks, the things that they are not doing, even though they know they should be doing them, come down to, a lot of the time, personal values, personal experiences, and personal goals that are subconscious and have not yet been processed enough for them to be fully conscious or for them to be communicated externally. So when you are doing work with people, the benefit of that relationship is something that, as a coach, as a consultant, as somebody who is providing those types of supported services, you can reflect on the subjective things that you know are an outcome. You know that if someone works with you, you get that. How do you define that for them and provide a concrete example of how your support for their personal values and internal life helps them to reach their goals in a way that is going to have them easily say yes? So We're doing a little bit more work to make sure that our services align with what our clients are needing to achieve. And we are understanding how, as coaches and consultants, we are actively supporting people in these areas and providing it with the sort of outcomes that our clients are looking for. Hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully that like slightly personal detour like does provide you with the like a real life example of like that's a problem that AI genuinely can't solve. Like it can give me some hints and tips as it were, but that is an existential issue, to be frank. It is an issue that is tied up with like you know, business strategy, with you know, theology, with personal experience, and with the fundamental nature and culture of the internet. It's too complicated for AI to be able to give me a lot of input on. So when you're thinking through these things, like there's a whole host of context there that you as a coach are working and helping people work through without even necessarily being totally aware of it as your practice. Like, you know that you're doing it, but you're addressing things that you're not even aware of at the time because of the whole Johari window thing, just to go back to that. Anyway, then we have the key qualities and skills, which are similar to some of the ones that we have talked about previously, because it comes down to that sense of human relationship, interaction, strategic thinking. What doing Clifton strengths is a really helpful thing here, because it will pull out the strengths that you have that are not necessarily concrete or skills based, but are more to do with your way of thinking. And I would highly recommend spending $50 on that, and then using that as you think through your positioning and your marketing, and also how you support your clients. So we're going to go to marketing magic for a little bit. I am going to go into the chat and just check to see if there's any comments that I've missed. Here we go. Are we feeding client strategic docs into marketing magic? So no, you are not feeding them in. Definitely not right now. It is a feature that we potentially could look at in terms of like marketing strategy documents, for instance, because you've got the private API key as well, and you can delete them as soon as you're done. And it's like, you know, you've got total control over the privacy side of things. That potentially is something that we could do. It's not a feature at the moment, but you can use your platform.openai.com account to do that. And that is still your private API key. So you're able to implement the use of AI with that kind of analysis already. If you are interested in finding out more about that, we can talk about it on one of the commercial client calls, and I can do a demo for you within that. So do circle back in terms of that in one of those calls. I'm not going to do that in this container, because that is some gold dust knowledge that you will get access to if you're a commercial license holder. But me showing you that, you will absolutely love it. So if you've got a commercial license, we will cover that, and I'll maybe record like a separate tutorial to show how to use platform.openai.com for things that Marketing Magic doesn't do, because it's so much fun. Honestly, it's the best. So I'll talk about that there. So it's why I haven't used Notion AI. Right. So Notion AI is a really interesting one. Notion AI is built on Claude, and I haven't actually had a proper chance to do a big deep dive into it yet. But it's been on my to-do list since like last year, but I've just been, you know, building chaotic amounts of stuff behind the scenes. So it is on my to-do list to look at. But when you are, so Notion AI, Squarespace AI, any tools that add an AI feature lack context and are going to give you the most generic version, unless you're providing quite a lot of like prompting behind the scenes, and then it doesn't really save you a huge amount of time necessarily. But when you are using things in your workflows like that, they will often get picked up by AI detectors because they don't have enough context to make the content genuinely sound like you. Tori, I've trained a model. Karen, love the detour. Yeah, so that's part of the thing, I think, is like these sessions are also to really just think about the fact that as you are using AI, yes, you can use Marketing Magic for deliverables, but we've covered that, right? We are also thinking about like, why is it that your positioning as a service provider who works with people is distinct from your use of AI. Because the biggest question that I've had from people over the last like 18 months is, why would people work with me if I'm using AI when they could use AI themselves? Well, because you're still the expert. You still have all of this additional stuff that goes beyond the use of AI that your clients need your expertise and input for. So the purpose of these sessions, like, yeah, we're promoting the commercial lifetime license, but in order for you to feel like you can actively use AI in your client like provision, your service provision in your businesses, and understand that fundamentally you're using AI as a tool, but your expertise and the value that you bring to this, everything that you use AI for, is still going through that filter. It's like, using the word filter there has made me think, it's like your clients are, oh, we're having, okay, sorry, I've just got a little live stream situation going on here. There we go. We're only on YouTube today. So anyway, it pops up and we're like 40 minutes into it. So the fact that it's only just told me is wild. Anyway, you are like a Brita water filter and the tap water is all of the AI generated content, and your filter is what gets rid of all the stuff that is going to give people a stomach bug and keep them tied to the toilet for 48 hours. And your clients are getting a nice clean glass of tap water that is going to help keep them hydrated as they grow their businesses. So there's an analogy for you, off the cuff and in the moment. And if you're North American and you are uncomfortable with the bathroom analogy there, I apologize. It came up before I could filter it out, so I apologize. But that is, that's what we're doing here, is like your filter, and you focusing on your filter of expertise being as good as it can be, and your own professional development is what is going to continue to provide really great services. Because regardless of where the information is coming from, whether it is, customer questionnaires, feedback, historic business data, strategy documents, a Google Drive full of things that have been half implemented, like whatever the data is behind the scenes, your filter is what is going to help your clients take only the necessary things forward. So there we have that. Let's look at marketing magic specifically for working in the sort of client and consultative capacity. Now, I have spent a lot of time over the last week and a half looking at the customer journey, customer magic research pieces that are built into this tool, because having the framework of research already shortcut for you and provided is a really, really, really helpful initial framework for you to then get an idea of the context of the situation before you dive into any of the stuff that your client has provided for you in terms of documentation. If you have ever been presented with a Google Drive of 15 years of business documentation, you will understand and appreciate that that is a very overwhelming place to begin. And so just creating a bit of a framework for where you want to move forwards before you go into the archives is something that is incredibly helpful as far as AI's contributions to tools and projects go. Now, if you're doing coaching, understanding more of your client's context is going to make you a more effective coach, because you will have a framework for the questions that you want to ask and some of the things that your client might be facing if you don't have personal experience within that industry. Now, with that said, the customer journey tools are a really great way to provide a little bit of understanding and framework around that, so that you can kind of understand a little bit more about who your client is in their space, but also who their client is, who their customer is, so that the questions that your clients are bringing to coaching sessions, to mentoring sessions, have contextual relevancy in the moment. Your preparation time is effectively 10x, because you can get some insights a little bit more quickly that allow you to frame your questions and allow you to kind of connect dots for them and help them move towards resolution or an answer. So I'm not going to dwell on these because we have talked about them at length in some of the other sessions, and I know quite a few people have watched multiple sessions. But when you're thinking specifically around coaching consulting, understanding who you are coaching, not just with their onboarding questions, but also the industry that they exist in and what their professional experience looks like and what some of the common worries, concerns, needs, requirements for people in that space look like, is going to be a really helpful thing to do. So I personally will, if I'm working as a consultant, I will always do a good amount. And I say, when I'm doing consulting projects, typically they've been like bigger pieces where I've been working with people over a number of weeks at a deep level. And so I'll spend like 5 days doing a huge deep dive on their like their industry, some of the competitive research, all of that kind of thing. This is the first 3 hours maybe of that process, so that instead of spending 5 days, I'm spending 4 hours, and 3 hours of it is this, and an hour of it is validating it against data elsewhere. So maybe let's say if it took me 5 days, this will help me make it a day. But again, because projects are so varied, like if you're doing a consultative project and you know that you're going in somewhere for 12 weeks and you are doing a deep dive and you are like really helping them nail out some historic stuff, then 5 days is a reasonable amount of time to be spending researching. If you are working with a one-to-one client for 3 months, that is not a reasonable amount of time. And so what I would do is spend, an hour or two here, and it's going to still give you, the equivalent of like 3 or 4 days worth of manual research. But just to give you a sense of, a framework there. And ultimately, the customer journey, you can generate it all in like less than 10 minutes and then spend 50 minutes reading through it and creating some notes for yourself. But if you've got a framework for the information that's helpful for you when you're working with a client, one of the things that I would recommend doing is creating like a one sheet for the key things that is helpful for you to know before, say, your first session. Framework it onto a page and then either turn it into a template or photocopy it, whatever your preferred method is. But have that, and then use like the customer journey tools, for instance, to be like, okay, these are some of the key things that it's helpful to know about their space, about what their current challenges are. These are some different examples. Let me take some notes. We're going to ask about that on the first call. We're going to, create a wider contextual framework, but we've got something that helps as a starting point. So that's the research side of things. Content, again, depending on, we may need to have a sneeze break. So we're going to see how we go. But what we are potentially thinking through when it comes to the FAQs and things like that is it depends on the type of support that you're giving people. Again, this is giving an insight into who their customers are. So if you're helping people with business and performance-based things, this is going to help connect dots where there may be a really big gap between your client and their ideal customers at the moment, and you're just looking at ways of like how they can close that gap. So the content ideas and content outline tools are helpful. Content outline slightly less unless you're doing marketing support specifically, but the content ideas piece is really thinking through, okay, how is my client showing up in this area? What are some of the opportunities that are there, and what has stopped them from taking them before now, and kind of understanding a little bit of capacity. Once you have created that picture, often the gap is the capacity piece, and that's where you're working one-to-one with people based on their context to understand, okay, well, here you've been spending your capacity, time, energy, resources, money, skills, etc. Here we're not seeing the metrics, we're not seeing the growth. So how about we spend some of the next 30 days looking at this area and measure to see what kind of results you're getting that way. So again, if you're in that kind of directive, non-directive, what's the word I'm looking for? Hybrid space. These are the types of things that can help you to create a plan to measure against when it comes to their actual results and the actual impact and the objective measurable things that you're helping them to achieve. Because at the moment, they might be stuck in a cycle of posting on Instagram because that's what everyone's doing. But when you look at the metrics, they're not seeing growth from Instagram. They're not seeing conversions from Instagram. So what does it look like to reallocate that time, that energy, that creative resource into one of the gaps that they have not had the time to fulfill at the moment? So hopefully that makes sense. Brand magic, looking at this like mission, vision, and values, and understanding positioning and how to define positioning. Often, especially with small business owners, is something that might be a struggle to communicate, especially in the very early stages. If you're working with people whose business is relatively new, if you're working with people who are a bit more established, then often that's an exercise that they've gone through at some point in a course or program with their ideal customer avatar. But that core documentation that is really looking at how a business shows up and what their messaging looks like from a brand positioning perspective is something that these tools can help to review and hone and make sure it really is aligned with what goals and things you're looking at. Creating a whole lot of stuff around like vision and impact is another great exercise with AI. So if you've got, let's take an example of you're working with a client who has got a mindset block or a business block or a performance issue around a particular area. You've talked around it in circles and you can't quite get to the grasp of what your client is experiencing. Like your client is like, no, it's not quite that, it's this, or like, but there's a reason for that and it's this, and you're like, that doesn't feel like is the reason, and you've kind of talked around things in circles. Using AI to generate a whole load of scenarios or a whole load of examples, or let's take the impact that you want to have or the vision or your values as an exercise. You can use the something like the vision value generator, for instance, to create like 9 sets of things and then cross out and talk through the different iterations of it. So like, why isn't this one right? Well, okay, well, it's not about this value. Let's actually generate an actual value and talk it so I can like anchor this with something. So it's going to take a little minute, but let's say you've got like 9 different examples of something and you're like, okay, we've talked around this, we can't quite get to it. So here's a load of different things from slightly different angles on a one sheet that took like 15 minutes to create with AI, but it's going to help you get like a really good, a good outcome. So let's take values. Okay, we've got, we're just going to remove that so it's not distracting. Values, so joy, simplicity, empowerment, creativity, inclusivity, sustainability, and efficiency. Now, I might look at this and say, okay, empowerment, do I like that as a word for a value? No. Why don't I like it? Is it about empowerment? Is it about it kind of is, I'm creating a problem for myself here because empowerment is fine. But let's say like ultimately, I don't like the word empowerment. Why don't I like the word empowerment? It's giving you the ability to say, okay, well, so that doesn't quite land for this reason. You as the coach are building up your context of what their problems are with this. So as you're thinking about angling, positioning, what their key issue is, you can create AI generated scenarios to talk through that are contextually relevant to your client's situation so that you can understand more of your client's reasoning processes and then ask them the right questions to help them make a confident decision. So you're not getting stuck in a cycle of feedback loops where nothing is actually resolved, because you are able to say, here is a framework for us that is relevant to your business, at least it's adjacent to what your business is dealing with. Let's talk around these things to nail out what's going on here and then come to a conclusion. Does that make sense? So when you are using marketing magic with your clients, as far as some of these brand-based tools are concerned, using them to create conversation points, to create things where you can almost build a problem and say, okay, well, why is this not relevant to your brand? Like as an outsider, this feels like it should be. You're forcing them to verbalize and communicate why what you've said is not correct, which ultimately will help them to have more clarity when it comes to their positioning, their marketing, their business growth, their strategy. So those are some of the ways that you can also apply the use of these tools in a commercial context once you've got the sort of framework in place for your client. Website, homepage, and about page, content ideas, and brand emails and brand social, they're all a little bit more content focused. And then depending on what kind of, again, coaching consultancy you're doing, what kind of strategy you're providing, there are tools that obviously look at the product and offer strategy behind things. Now, these are to do with the assets of particular products, but Product Magic is a really fun one to look at because you can talk around product ideas when it comes to, what does ideation look like? What is your offer strategy? What are the things that you want to create? What are the topics that you want to talk more about? What are the things that have been in your idea backlog, but you haven't had time to action? How do we put these through the framework of something that works alongside your, business goals and how you want to be known in the market and all of those different things? And so the ideation tools here are a really, helpful thing to put through that as well. Maybe your client has a product or has something in their business that they should be selling more of, but they've got some weird, resistance to it. Building out the product and getting some different angles for summarizing it, for again, conversation points like what is it helping people do, what outcomes are they getting, who is it for, can help work through some of the subconscious resistance that people have to selling, for instance, because you're talking through the value that it is giving to their customer. You're positioning it in a way where it's much easier to see the value. And actually selling, if you just encourage someone to sell and become more confident with selling without addressing the resistance to selling in a way that resolves it and makes it feel easy to sell, you are creating relatively problematic people on the internet, because the reason that people have a resistance to selling is often because they don't have the perspective of why what they're selling is impactful and valuable to their customers. As soon as you resolve, this is impactful and valuable to my customers for these reasons, and I've got objective frameworks to show me why it's so helpful, it is really easy to overcome your mindset issues around selling on the internet. But you need to, the understanding, that coaching bit is that understanding of like, this is how people are perceiving your value. This is how you can encourage and help people. This is why what you have is worth buying. Makes it a lot easier. And so if people are resistant to selling something, it is not necessarily because they need to learn how to do NLP on a sales webinar. It might just be that they need to have a better framework for how what they're selling actually helps people, and for them to see the impact of their work. And these tools, again, from a positioning perspective, allow you to create sometimes imaginary contexts or things where you're like, okay, let's just imagine for the sake of this coaching session an exercise, or let's imagine for the sake of this consultative period that you've got a product suite of these things. What is stopping you from selling them? What is stopping you from growing your business? What are the reasons that you are not showing up and serving these customers? So the product summary piece, the ideas piece, some of the ideation, so that you can work through scenarios and kind of build out context, also super helpful in those types of sessions. Hopefully that all makes sense. I'm just thinking through, I think that's probably a wrap for today on the coaching and consulting side of things. Obviously, we've been looking at the marketing magic tools through the lens because ultimately, this is the tool that I've built. This is the AI framework that I can show to you right now in terms of how you would apply some of the creative generative AI technology to your coaching based interactions with people. But when it comes to more wider applications, what I would say to you is it's worth keeping an eye on how industry specific things are being developed for the David, you've got fundraising, right? That's a really good example. Like, how are fundraising applications, I'll read the rest of your question in a minute, but just for the context, for finishing out this thought, if you are working with people who are trying to do fundraising, what are some of the fundraising tools that are out there that are building out, and this speaks to the market research piece as well, that are building out some AI modeling and functionality around their features and functions? Those are the types of things that, as a coach, in a space, you want to be keeping an eye out for, because they are potentially going to help solve bottlenecks for your client in other areas where your facilitation and positioning of things is within this, knowing your client is really what you're wanting to do. Okay, David, using marketing magic for simplified fundraising exposure strategy for nonprofits who don't learn about their donors' history and motivation to support through financial surpluses, confusing and so on to utilize. Exactly. So when I've worked a lot with nonprofits and charities in the UK. I worked as a project manager for a like higher education college when they were transitioning from being accredited by one university in the UK to another, and the absolute insular lack of consideration for who your clients are, and instead just being like, we need money, so how can we make people give us money? Look, they must know that what we're doing is impactful. No, what you need to do is communicate and make people understand why they will benefit if your organization continues to exist. So the idea of using customer research to, especially if you're working within an organization and not for profit, to you can go into those projects and you're just faced with like this scarcity mindset of people being like, we must raise money or we're going to go out of business. We must raise money or we cannot continue to work towards our vision and passion. It's one of the most toxic spaces, but that's a conversation for another time. To be basically so consumed by your own need for financial resource that you completely forget to care about what your audience and customers and mailing list and all of those people like want to know about. So when you are going into a project where you are creating a strategy or you're building out a plan to like allocate resources, fundamentally being able to demonstrate, here is the customer journey, that our ideal customers in this organization, the people who engage with this organization, this is what they care about. Who else are we serving? So if you're talking about a fundraising client, you've got two people. You've got the people that are being impacted by the function of the charity, and then you've got people who are motivated to support the charity. So you're going to use two angles there for your customer journey. You're going to understand what the motivation is for people with resources to support the charity, and then you're going to understand how to make sure that the people that are being impacted by the nonprofit have got a way of communicating that back to the charity. So communication is going in two separate ways. If you do not understand the motivations and drivers of people who are the patrons of charities, of people who have got resources to be philanthropic, and you're not able to communicate what you're doing from these people in a way that is impactful to these people, you're always going to be faced with a resourcing issue. You're always going to be faced with a constant need to remind people that if they don't give you money, you're not going to survive, and get out of that kind of we're constantly running out of money, and that's the motivation for people to give. So understanding how to talk to the people who are would-be donors and create strategies around that. Customer journey and customer focus based things are a really helpful framework to be able to go into organizations and say, look, you're doing it like this, but actually here is some examples of how we could do this, and encourage a much more engaged level of communication and action from our audience in this way. So when you are thinking through, from the donor's history side of things as well, like, yes, that is a part of it, but you're not always wanting, so like understanding the donor's history, but you also, there is a piece here where you can use the tool to identify potential future donors. And that is also going to have an incredibly beneficial impact on a nonprofit, because one of the charities that I've done a bit of like marketing consulting for, their donor base is just is basically dying, and they're leaving like a little bit of grant money when they die, but they're not replacing their donors with anyone new. So there isn't definite time frame for when their charity is no longer going to be sustainable, because their donor history has been their only strategy, and they haven't done any meaningful work when it comes to bringing new donors on board as well. So it's like the two-sided piece there. But using AI to again analyze historic documents in nonprofits, looking at like fundraising bids is one where you could take the historic fundraising bid data and summarize it out for some of the key and salient points. Just thinking about other things that would be applicable there. But as far as like communication strategy goes, using Marketing Magic for like knowing that you're in that space, you've got two lots of people that you're talking to, potential future donors who might have been people who've been impacted and gone on to, you know, want to contribute back, existing donors who've got their own story there, and then potential other donors who are outside of the charity, but you've identified the people that you're talking to. Once you've got that data, you can plug it into Marketing Magic, and let's say for the sake of a project, you decide to set up a brand profile for each of those people. So you've got the brand profile and brand positioning, but from the angle of the different pots of people that you're communicating with. And then you can go through and do a little bit of customer research for each of those, and then obviously delete the ones that you don't need to use in an ongoing basis after that. But you can set it up so that you've got one for, you know, the core charity and who it's impacting with its services, one for the charity as it talks to its donors, as it's perceived by its donors, what the donors get out of it, and one for potential other donors as well. And then do some you know, work around all of that before you collate it into a sort of final document. There's always going to be a case of like you're doing a lot of research and generating a lot of information before you pare it back and pull it into something that is a simplified user-facing document, and that's just the nature of doing this kind of consulting and work. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. We are at 10 past the hour, so I'm very aware of time. I hope that this has been helpful. I know we've talked a lot more about some of the existential stuff and the sort of wider workflows and processes with AI, but that is partly because when you are doing something that is very relationally and contextually focused, the tools themselves, you know, when you're using Marketing Magic regularly, you can kind of start to get a sense of how you might use a particular thing within this framework. But we're also thinking through the actual positioning to our clients of our skills and services, so that they understand that if they suddenly find out about ChatGPT, that is not going to do what you do. That is not going to do what you do. So we are going to leave it there for this session. If you've got any questions or follow-ups, please obviously let me know. To mention, if you have not already got it, the commercial license for Marketing Magic is on a limited time lifetime license, and you can get this until Friday. It is the best money that you will spend in your business this year. I guarantee that you will love it, and it is going to save you a huge amount of time. You are going to inject so much more joy back into your business and work because of the amount of time and mental energy you will save, and the way in which it helps you to understand your clients and the people that your businesses that you're providing services to. Someone emailed today and said that they are so excited about it, they want to literally change their career. So we have already got so many people who are really loving what Marketing Magic is doing for them, and it's reinvigorating their excitement and joy for their industry and for what they're doing and what services they're providing. So the lifetime license is available until Friday. There's more information about it here. If you have not yet got a trial account for any reason, go to marketingmagic.app and you will be able to just get a free trial, and you can try this all out for yourself. The commercial license has support calls each month. So if you have a gnarly issue, like Dave has come into the chat with this specific concept around fundraising, those are the types of things that in our commercial calls we can talk about in more detail. Same with the thing I mentioned earlier in tonight's session, which which was looking at how we build out specific frameworks for using OpenAI's platform to analyze documentation, because that isn't something that's currently done in Marketing Magic. But those are the types of things that when you are a commercial licensed user, you will be able to ask questions about and get frameworks for, so that your use of AI across your service provision is supported, and you feel super comfortable with making the most out of what generative AI in particular can help with. So do head over, get yourself a commercial license. It is lifetime access until Friday, and then after that it will revert to monthly, and we will monthly or annual, and we will not be offering lifetime license on our commercial licenses again. This is a one-time thing. So that is where I'm feeling right now anyway, and just because of the amount of support that we provide and the return on investment that you can get with the commercial package. So if you've got any questions, obviously get in touch. Lucy and I are here to help. Lucy is sort of really focused on the commercial and affiliate side of things. She's helping me out at the minute because we're looking at bringing on new team members over the next few months, but Lucy is primarily part of my team to serve commercial and commercial users and to support affiliates. So there is dedicated support for you within Marketing Magic as you use it in your service provision. So let me double check that I haven't missed any questions. Great. Also, David said, as you're from the UK, say spot on. Love that. We do have a team member in the US, Ali, who is part of our customer support in our Heartbeat community. And I am in conversation with somebody who is based in the US because we have a lot of people in North America. So we are going to be building out people in North American time zones as well. So as far as support is covered, we do our best to make sure that you get support as quickly as you can, but we are being very intentional about looking at team growth in time zones that work for where our users are based. So you can feel reassured that we're thinking about that ahead of time as well. So I'm going to love you and leave you to mull over everything that we've talked about. If you have any questions or anything related to what we've talked about on our live stream, or if you are wanting to ask questions about the commercial lifetime license before that ends, then ask in the chat, pop us an email. We're here to help. Otherwise, I will be back tomorrow for a live stream, which I, again, cannot remember what it is. I did this last week as well, but we're back for another live stream that looks at a different area of service provision and how we can use AI within it. And I will, see you tomorrow. If you are a Marketing Magic customer and you have not yet used the tone of voice feature, do remember that feature rolls out today, and you can head over to your account and enjoy an all new experience that sounds even more like you than it did before. Or if you felt like it was, we've got quite a lot of people in like niche industries. This is an update that is going to make a really big difference for you as well. So do go over and check that out. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good evening, day, and I will, see you in your next live stream. See you soon.